Hey guys, this is Billy from AdultCello.com, and today we've got the second part of my Better Bow Hold lesson series. What we're going to be talking about today is strength and control. Okay, so last week we talked about flexibility, and now we're talking about strength and control and a few things we can work on. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to my channel. I would really appreciate it. And if this video you find it helpful, please consider liking it as well. All right, let's move right along. So I'm going to start off with the world's shortest note for you, and I want to teach you how to play it. Okay, so are you ready? There it is. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm sinking down with lots of weight, okay? And you have to really push on the string, and then what I'll be doing is I'm just kind of pulling with a continually very heavy hand. And when I say heavy, as you might imagine, I don't mean pushing with the thumb heavy, like squeezing the stick. I mean just like hanging. Remember this from the previous lesson, hanging down. Just hanging heavy, very little thumb involved. And then I'm going to pull the string to the side, and at a certain point, it just gives, and it's going to release and then get caught again because the hair is staying so heavy. Okay, it's really fun to do. It seems ridiculous, but what it teaches you is how to kind of sink in with a lot of weight in your hand, but not squeeze. What I found is if I start squeezing with my thumb too, it's really easy to have it just kind of shoot forward. And then you get the world's, shortest 15 notes in a row, like, something like that. So what you want is you're going to sink down. You just start pulling to the side, but without losing any of the weight, and then it'll catch. And you can do it on each string. That's about 3 notes. There you go. That's just one. So it's just a little pop. It's completely ridiculous. It's so fun. But it develops both this strength of learning how to sink in and also control, because you can't just move the bow, and you also you can't get too stiff, otherwise you'll just push on the string and you'll be waiting forever. So you have to figure out how to tug on the string just enough, and then to get one little pop. This is harder. If it looks hard, it's even harder than that. If it looks easy, it's really much harder than it looks to do. Fortunately, this is okay. Fortunately, this is one of those exercises that's also really fun to practice. Okay. I remember there was another exercise where you to find the balance point for your bow, and you just sort of you just kind of let it slide down as it keeps bouncing. That's fun to work on too. This is just really fun to do, but that's what you're working on, okay? So you're just heavy, and then also the control of staying heavy and then just teasing the string over just to the edge, pop, and then it catches again right on your hair, okay? So that's the first of those exercises. All right, second exercise for today is going to be, they're called bow push-ups, but they're really push-downs. And we can start anywhere from basically 2/3 of the way out all the way to the tip. So it's in this upper third is where we're going to be focused. You can start, let's say the D string. I like to start on the D string just because it's one of the strings that seems kind of squared to the way I hold the cello. So it just kind of makes it a good starting place for a lot of this. And what we're focusing on now is the right kind of strength when we pronate, okay? So as you know, further we get out towards the tip, you have to really roll the hand over and make the first finger really heavy, and then the thumb is kind of not really pushing into the stick, but it's kind of lifting and twisting the stick into your palm so that you can turn over with more force onto the first finger. So what you do here is I'll go about 3/4 of the way out, and then if you see the stick and you see the hair, okay, what I'm going to do with only first finger and thumb, ideally, is I'm just going to do that kind of pronation. So my thumb is twisting this way, the first finger is pushing down, and the stick is actually touching, you can probably hear it in the mic, the stick is actually touching the string. You hear like ding. And from my vantage point, the stick is landing not on the hair, because I have the bow tilted, it's landing behind the hair, so closer to me, closer to my body than the hair is. Okay? If you need to hold the bow with all your fingers so that it doesn't drop, that's totally fine to do. I think that's when you know that you have true control, strength, and balance, is when you can do the same thing with just the first finger and the thumb, and you don't feel like the bow is like sliding down out of your, out of your control. Okay? So those are like little bow push-ups. The further, so this now, and also if you look at the middle of the stick, you can see it really does bend quite a bit. I remember I went to a master class where Lynn Harrell was demonstrating, rest in peace, and he was talking about how much strength he feels you need to play, and he held the tip in one hand, and then he pushed like this kind of exercise I'm talking about, and he put the stick about through the hair. He put it like about half an inch through the hair below it. It was, I was so shocked the bow didn't break. It was amazing. But it's like the strongest guy ever. I definitely don't have that much strength, nor do I necessarily think you need it, but it was pretty impressive. So this is, okay, the little bow push-ups. Start anywhere. You could start in the middle, but I would say anywhere from like 2/3 of the way out, all the way to the tip. Clearly, the closer you get to the tip, the string is going to feel more and more taut, and you're further from your body. So you're not going to get this wood at the tip to the hair. Don't even try. It'll snap the bow, okay? So you'll see the bow, if you're way out here, you'll just see it flexing more in the middle where the camber is, okay? So don't think like I need to get this part of the stick to the hair, because that'd be crazy, okay? All right, so that's second exercise. All right, so the third exercise here, this is going to be a little more on the control side than the strength side, is kind of a windshield wiper exercise. Okay, so there's a couple ways to do this. I'll demonstrate them both, the ways I'm talking about, is you'll just have kind of a regular grip on your bow, or you can put the pinky on the top of the stick, either way. So first way we're going to do this windshield wiper exercise is just with the whole arm, you're just kind of slowly moving the bow, and this is actually one of those ones that faster is not necessarily better, because what you're doing is as the bow kind of, let's say it's moving this way and it starts falling, your pinky is going to have to catch it, okay? But if you notice my first finger, there's like, I can take it completely off the stick and there's no problem at all. So basically the pinky's taking all the work because the tip is heavy and it's over on this side, okay? And then as I move it back over, now my pinky could be completely off the stick and my first finger is, in control. The first finger, thumb, and third finger, second finger to a degree, but not the pinky. So this is just demonstrating that depending on what you're doing with your bow, you're not using all the fingers together. So if there's 100 units of control and strength when you're playing, almost never is it going to be 25 units of strength and effort in each finger at the same time. So it's not like they all grip the same way. So depending on what you're doing with your bow, different fingers activate and do different roles, and other fingers, therefore, can take a break. So I'm here, my first finger is relaxed. I'm not worried about it. Here, pinky, I'm not trying to make it do work. If it doesn't have to do anything, why make it do anything, okay? So, and now, as you can probably see, even though I have a sleeve on, the whole arm is rotating in this version, okay? So I'm just doing this with my arm, and then my fingers are doing kind of the more precise, control work of making sure that the bow doesn't fall forward, it doesn't hit me in the face, it doesn't fall back over my shoulder. I'm just trying to make it just like as if there's an invisible windshield here, and it's just wiping one surface, one plane, okay? This is actually, I think, I've seen a lot of violinists do this. I haven't seen a lot of cellists do this. I think it's underrated. I think if you really kind of get in your fingers and investigate, you learn a lot about a lot of stuff that would help with string crossings, for example, hopping over a string to get to another string, those kind of things. Okay, the other way you can do this, I'll go ahead and put my pinky on the top of this stick, would be to just sort of like isolate the hand so that it's just more like this. So I don't have my arms not turning anymore. I have everything kind of not stiff, but just kind of still. And then I'm pushing with the pinky like this and just sort of feeling what my third finger does, for example, when my pinky's extended, my third finger, how it's controlling as well. And then you could turn it over, stuff like this, where you're basically like just moving the bow backwards and forth. So that time I was doing this kind of a direction. Earlier I was doing this kind of a direction. You can just try different directions and see what your thumb does. Now I'm doing some weird thing, but you're basically just rolling the bow back and forth on some plane, okay, some three-dimensional plane, back and forth, and just seeing what your fingers need to do to control it. Okay, to me, this is much harder than this windshield thing. This is kind of like a warm-up, like I didn't have my coffee yet. I just want to like warm up, feel like a master of the cello. So I just kind of do this. I'm like, yeah, look at that. I notice everything, you know? But then you get into this stuff, and if you're not careful, you know, the bow can kind of slip out of your hand if you're doing a weird sort of rotation or something, because you have to be a lot more cognizant of what your fingers are doing because they're the only thing moving the bow, okay? So we have a couple more minutes. Aren't you lucky? So why don't we do one more thing? So we talked about those bow push-ups, and here's something you can do to focus on pronation that is, again, strength and control. We'll start at the tip on the D string, and you can do this for all the strings. I'm just going to show you on the D string. And I'm going to load up with my pronation so that I feel like it's locked and loaded, and it feels very like stiff. And then I'm just going to move the bow. So I'm strong with the finger, with the first finger and the thumb, and I move, and it has to, you know, relent a little bit, otherwise it would just be crushing the string, and I catch it. Okay, so it's like you can go in either direction, and what I'm doing is I scoot the bow and then catch it. Scoot, catch, and what I'm trying to do every time I catch the bow, I try to catch it in a way that my fingers are locked and loaded to go again. So it's not like I pronate, I do that, I relax, and then I'm like, okay, let's do it again. Okay, let's do it again. I'm trying to go, so I could do two right in a row, because when you finish one and you're like ready for the second one. Okay? That's a really good way. One thing I use that for is to just kind of develop this sense of control and strength in the pronation. The other thing this can be good for is if you have you're having trouble kind of figuring out what's a straight bow. I'll do that with some of my students where we kind of trace 1 inch at a time. You just sort of, and you're checking in a mirror, and you're just checking to make sure that your bow continues to be straight. Once you get out here, you're also working on strength and pronation, because it becomes harder and harder to just scoot the bow and get a good, like a sticky start each time. Okay, so there you go. That's some strength and control work for a better bow hold. I'll see you in part 3, where we're going to talk about arguably the most complicated sort of bow hold principle, which is colle. It's an incredibly helpful thing. It takes quite a while to work on, but I'll show you exactly how I learned how to do it. All right, see you then.